Hi, thank you for calling Square Enix. My name is Tyler. How may I direct your call today?
Yeah, I was wondering if I could speak to someone in HR about a job application.
Oh yes, and what job are you looking to apply for today?
I was looking to join your writing team. You see, I just recently graduated middle school, so I think I'm really qualified to be part of your next project.
You very well might be qualified. And we actually don't have a number directly to HR, but you can go online at Square.
So I'm guaranteed a job interview because I'm so qualified to write your next movie or game, because it seems like you just hire literally anyone who fucking posts on DeviantArt.
I'm saying we open the door to anyone.
Final Fantasy Dissidia NT might just be one of the worst fighting games I've ever played in my life. Never have I seen a series stray so far away from what made it great to begin with. Everything from the gameplay to the story to the heart and soul of Final Fantasy itself, it's just not fucking present here in this game. Maybe it's the fact that it was outsourced to Koei Tecmo, or maybe it's the fact that the director of the last 7 games looks like he's a fucking cross-dresser, but there's just something I can't stand about this game. There's honestly just so much to talk about with this game that I have to divide this video up into 3 segments, so let's just start with part 1, the gameplay. If you're not familiar with Dissidia, the game functions a little bit differently from Final Fantasy, whereas in Final Fantasy you just deal direct HP damage with every attack you do. In Dissidia you have 2 different attack values, Bravery and HP itself. As a general rule of thumb, Bravery attacks are usually a lot faster, have a lot less frame delays in between attacks, and a lot less punishment on whiffs. On the other hand, HP attacks are very slow, heavily telegraphed, and extremely easy to punish when dodged.
Hello, this is me telegraphing my attack. Are you ready? Here it comes now.
It seems really simple, but it creates a really interesting dynamic. Do you save all of your Bravery points for one big HP attack, or do you whittle them down with multiple HP attacks over the course of a longer battle? And it only gets more interesting as you get into countering. How do you react to someone having ridiculous amounts of Bravery points? How do you react to someone attacking you from afar? How do you react to mix-ups? How do you react to combo attacks? Do I try to interrupt my enemy's Bravery attack with my own Bravery attack, or do I try to block it and then attack with my HP attack? This gameplay was pretty in-depth for what was only really using 2 buttons. You would think that when porting the game to consoles, you would have a lot more buttons to work with and therefore a lot more game mechanics to add, but instead we got nothing really of all that much importance. Not only does Dissidia NT add very little to the gameplay formula, it actually takes a lot away from it. The absolute biggest offender in this game is the movement. It is so slow compared to the previous games. For some reason they thought it was a great idea to make it so that you have restricted movement in a larger map than what it was in the previous games. What do I mean by restricted movement? Well, first off, they added a dash gauge, which makes no sense since the maps are bigger. Then they removed the ability to vertically dodge and jump after dodging, which makes no sense since the maps are taller. Then they were like, hey, you know that quick move thing where you could like do this little spinny jump thing across huge gaps in the map? Well, let's just completely remove that from the game altogether, which makes no sense since these maps are gigantic! Let's just do a quick little side-by-side comparison, because Dissidia was created subscribing to the design philosophy of fast-paced, action-oriented combat in stark contrast to the slower tactical RPG it rooted from. I'm gonna show you some clips real quick, and I want you to ask yourself while you're viewing them, which one of these games looks more fun? Which one of these is more interesting? Which one of these would I rather play? While watching these videos, I recommend that you do not pause at all. Just watch the gameplay as it goes on. Then once you're done with that, go back and read the little comments I left for each little part of the videos. This clip is from Dissidia Duodecim. This next clip is from Dissidia NT, and keep in mind, this is from a tournament. These are pro players, and this is what the game behaves like.
It was really close that last game.
Yeah, I know, it came right
one.
to the last bit right there. You can already see right now, looks like Team Excalibur has a little bit of advantage. Most of their players are at above 1,000. Oh no, never mind. Actually, one of them just got drained a little bit further down.
Oh yeah, it shifts so quickly because every time you do damage, it drains theirs and gives it to you. So it can shift extremely quickly. And I look, we're in the viewpoint of Slack right now playing Ramza. He said that he's a huge Final Fantasy Tactics fan, so he just had to play Ramza.
Oh, but he got snuck up from behind right there. He's going to lose a bunch of his bravery right there. Again, just getting sniped from afar.
I think it was actually a beautiful team save when he got wall splatted. Oh, but you can see right there that it looks like the Ace has so much bravery, but he might go down right now.
He's going to take, oh wow, just like that, in one quick sequence.
Once again, go back and watch those videos. This time, read the annotations and you'll understand the points that I'm trying to make. I want it to be known that I'm not bitching about the fact that the game is different. I like change. Change can be a good thing, but you gotta make sure that you're making the right changes. Dissidia was never meant to have 3-on-3 combat. It would be like putting 4 players on screen at the same time in Tekken, or 6 characters on screen at the same time in Marvel vs. Capcom. It just wouldn't work. There'd be too much shit happening on screen. The 3-on-3 combat is actually the root of every single issue in this game. It's all in service for this crap. The larger maps, the lack of HP attacks, the total absence of EX super modes. All of this is done to help balance the 6 players in the game, but that doesn't even make sense because I would figure it would be the other way around for a lot of the balancing. With larger maps, why would you want to limit the amount of movement people can make? With the amount of players on screen, why would you want to limit the amount of HP attacks people can use? With multiple HP attacks, people claim that the game would be way too complicated and it would be way too hard to predict how people play the game, but with one HP attack, everyone becomes super fucking predictable. Here's a common strategy. As soon as you see someone with massive amounts of bravery points, just play turtle style, because you just know they're only going to be able to use that one HP attack. If you know how to counter it, you're never going to get hit. Mix-ups are an important part of any fighting game. Imagine if Tekken only let you use like fucking 12 different attacks instead of the multiple 100 different combos that you can do in the game. It would be way too fucking predictable. Not only would it be predictable, it would be boring to watch and boring to play. My eyes glaze over while I watch these tournaments. Why? Because there's only one fucking strategy. Knock your enemy against the wall and then use your HP attack because it's the only way to stun the enemy. That just brings up my biggest question with this game. Where is the skill? Looking back on these clips, all of these kills, they don't have any skill involved. They all involve knocking the enemy against the wall, stun locking them, and then using their HP attack. The movement is too slow. The camera doesn't capture enough of the battlefield. The radar doesn't tell you anything. Dodges have more penalty frames than they do invincible frames. There's no penalty for having your attacks blocked. Blocking used to be a very skill-intensive ability. Block an attack and punish an enemy. Now it's reduced to this fucking Smash Bros. Orb. I think Donkey said it best. In any great competitive video game, there's always techniques and options for a great player to just whoop some ass, and none of that is present in this game. But hey, at least we get gorgeous graphics and the ability to have 6 players on screen at once, which is just so great because it adds to the load times. Oh my god, the load times. Have you met my friend Sonic06? He'd like his load times back, please. If you're looking to play an online match in this game, good luck to you. You could eat a meal in the amount of time that it takes to load this game. You gotta load 6 other players into the game, register their connections, load the map. It's just, oh my god, it's so bad. And you're gonna deal with it. You have no choice. You have to deal with it. If you want to play the story mode in this game, you have to deal with it. You have to look forward to the fucking load times. Unless you were me and looked up all of the cutscenes on YouTube because you weren't willing to deal with all of the shitty load times and all of the shitty gameplay and all of the fucking lag spikes. Which leads us into Part 2, the story. So remember that prank call that you saw at the beginning of the video? Well, I think I changed my mind. I think they just hire anyone from fanfiction.net to write their fucking stories, because this is just a rehash of Duodecim. And what I mean by it being a complete rehash of Duodecim is that it completely hits all the same beats as the original. Warriors get summoned by God. Warriors are confused as to why they were summoned. Warriors talk to God to figure out why they were summoned. Warrior refuses to fight, then suddenly changes their mind for no reason. Warriors split into groups, wander around aimlessly, and fight with their rivals. Warriors discover larger threat outside of the 2 main factions. Warriors defeat larger evil presence, but then continue to fight each other because it is their destiny to do so. Female warriors get raped by tentacle— Wait, oh shit, that's the wrong footage! It's not that this is a bad story, it's just we've seen it all before. You want to know what's a word you never want to use in writing? The word again. If you ever have your characters question why they're doing something that they've done before, that's bad writing. Imagine if there was a new James Bond movie and M calls him over the phone and says, "Hey James Bond, I need you to save the world," and he says, "Again?" That would be fucking stupid! It's bad enough that we, the audience, can already tell that this is a rehash, but to have the characters acknowledge it is even worse. What I don't understand is the need to fill in new characters and threats in exchange of what we already had for threats and characters. Cosmos and Chaos are replaced by Materia and Spiritus, which doesn't make sense because they fill the exact same roles that those ones had. Good God? Bad God. The Planesgorgers take up the exact same role that the mannequins had in Duodecim, which doesn't make sense because the mannequins still clearly exist in this world. I think the worst part about it is that you could just completely remove these things from the story and it wouldn't change it at all. We don't really need a third-party enemy when the main bad guys of each of our respective games are standing right there. The only things even remotely interesting that are brought about because of this plot device are the battles against the summons and Shinryu, but it's not even that fun because the game mechanics are so broken that it's impossible to enjoy. The world of Dissidia itself is not interesting because it's an amalgamation of everything from other Final Fantasy games. The things that you should be focusing on in Dissidia is those little pieces individually. The original Dissidia was a success because it paid homage to all of the great moments in Final Fantasy. It didn't waste its time trying to world build a world that didn't even have its own identity to begin with. This is why all of the stages in the game are based off iconic locations in each of the Final Fantasy games. It's fan service. It was never meant to be super deep. What is it that the fans wanted to see? Well, they wanted to see more cool 3D, highly stylized Dragon Ball Z-like fights like in Advent Children. Everyone wanted to see what would it be like if Squall and Ultimecia fought like that? What would it be like if Titus and Jecht fought like that? It would be really cool to see them engaging in these aerial fights. The only dialogue anyone wanted to see was between two characters who couldn't because of their individual games. What would it be like to see Cloud and Squall talking to each other? What would it be like for Titus to be fighting Sephiroth? I can tell you right now, nobody gave a shit about whatever the fuck the will of Cosmos was or whatever Chaos was planning. They just wanted to smash their fucking action figures together. Again, I'm not saying these are bad stories or that you can't fit a story into this series. You just have to be focusing on the right things. What are the right things to be focusing on? Well, let's talk about that with Part 3, Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within. Sometimes I wonder if Square Enix understands what makes Final Fantasy so great, and I'm talking about both the developers and the directors. You have to understand that Japanese people live a very different life from ours. More often than not, these are people who are staying with their parents, work over 12-hour-long days, and put in tons of overtime without any compensation, and just have no time for any social contact. I think Hayao Miyazaki said it best, that the reason we're not getting any good character-driven stories from Japan is because it's being written by people who don't like being around other people. If you don't understand your clientele, how can you ever create a good product for them? I'll give you an example. One of my favorite things about Final Fantasy is the music. The music is fantastic. Nobuo Uematsu is basically the Beethoven of video games. The original Dissidia translated a lot of Uematsu's work into faster-paced, action-oriented directions. How do you take the Final Fantasy VII boss theme, a relatively high-tempo, blood-pumping action tune, and make it even more exciting? Add drum and bass to that bitch. I'm not saying that Dissidia NT has a bad soundtrack, but let's you and I listen to one of the worst soundtracks on the OST. The Extreme is the final boss fight of Final Fantasy VIII, and it's really fast paced. This was at the top of the 90s game when breakbeat was at its highest. You would think they would want to interpret that into another fast-paced tune for the action game, which is a fighting game, which would really get your blood pumping, but no, they decide to make it some weird ska, big band, casino-like theme for some reason. They made some really weird choices with the soundtrack, and you can find the playlist in the description. I've commented on every single one of the songs, so I'd like to have a discussion with you there. The music isn't the only thing that's missing that Final Fantasy spirit. There's also tons of missing dialogue in this game. The original Dissidia and Duodecim had this cool little thing where every single character had a unique interaction at the beginning of every match. Why is this not in Dissidia NT? It's not like they don't have the room for the extra dialogue. They all have unique summoning lines, but they don't have unique intros. Where were the priorities in this game? One of the biggest reasons people watch professional wrestling is because of the smack talk that takes place before a match. What used to be smack talk between two characters has kind of devolved into a character just really talking to themselves at the beginning of a match. How is it that NetherRealms understands this better with Mortal Kombat and Injustice than the company that basically pioneered the idea? I'm gonna link another video in the description. This one is for all of the character intros, and they're pretty interesting. A lot of them are really funny. The last thing that I have for this category of being unable to capture the spirit of Final Fantasy, the one that really gets under my skin, is the complete lack of EX burst attacks. This right here, ladies and gentlemen, completely ties it all together. Story, gameplay, and the capturing of the Final Fantasy spirit. Limit breaks are the coolest thing about Final Fantasy, period. I like to call the Omnislash the Kamehameha of Final Fantasy games. Almost every character has their own spin on it. In any form of action-based media, whether it's anime, video games, or whatever, you can name almost any sort of special attack that they have. More than half the time, a special attack is what makes a character so memorable. Hell, if you look up Omnislash on YouTube, the video from Advent Children basically has 1 million views. It's the most important part of the entire movie. Every person who plays Dissidia wants to feel a moment like that. This moment where they just conquer all of the odds and deliver this gigantic fucking attack against their enemy. And you just don't get that in NT, and it's super unsatisfying. I really don't know who to blame for this, but I really like to point fingers at the fucking Smash Bros community, who just completely rejected the idea of the Smash Ball, saying that all fighting games just don't have the room for a super attack. Fuck you guys. I can't believe that there are dumb enough motherfuckers out there on forums who say that the EX burst attack takes up too much screen time in the game. I actually went and measured how long it takes to complete an EX burst attack versus how long it takes to summon an Eidolon in the new game, and it's the exact same amount of time. The only difference being there's no skill involved and there's no agency over having another AI fight for you. Once again, the esports community and this fraudulent community that just prides itself on skill-based combat argues for something that completely goes against the idea. EX modes would have made the game super interesting. How does a team work together to take down a player with superpowers? It would just add another layer of depth to the game. But instead we get this shit. Completely undodgeable attacks, completely unblockable attacks, not even skill-based, not even executed by another player, it's executed by a damn AI. All games, even competitive games, are supposed to be fun. And this is not fun.
If it's not fun, why bother?
I cannot for the life of me understand why the mobile game Dissidia Opera Omnia understands this better than the arcade port to console. I cannot for the life of me understand why a game almost a decade old does everything that this game tries to do, only better. I'm going to take a moment to stop speaking as if I'm speaking for every single Final Fantasy fan out there and just speak for myself for a moment. What I wanted, more than anything, was an RPG in the style of Final Fantasy that took place in a mixing world just like Dissidia, where you would go around and experience moments from every single Final Fantasy game with all of the main characters, and not just the main characters, but all of the villains and all of the side characters, and it would almost be like you played through every single one of the games, but with everyone there. A big celebration of everything Final Fantasy. Like World of Final Fantasy, only without that crappy Puyo Pop style. Dissidia Opera Omnia nearly delivered on that. Dissidia NT came nowhere close. I'm starting to wonder if it's just my Final Fantasy. Oh hi there, it's me Ace talking directly to you now. Did you enjoy the video? Do me a favor and hit that like button, it really helps me out. This is by far the lengthiest, most insane video I've ever made. I think I put over 60 hours of work into this video, like I put a whole work week into this shit. Do you believe that? Oh my lord. Have you played a Final Fantasy game before? Have you played Dissidia? What are your thoughts on the new Dissidia if you've played the old one? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to check out the description for all of the videos that I mentioned earlier. If you're not subscribed already, I recommend that you do, and I'd love it if you hit that bell icon because my content's quality and value is just skyrocketing. It is a dream of mine to produce these projects about the things that I'm passionate about, and it's because of my desire to share these things with you that keeps me going. If you have the time, I'd love to see you on my Twitch channel. That's twitch.tv/TheAceLewis. Once again, I've been streaming the making of all of my videos. I also just made my Patreon live, so if you could support me as little as even $1, I would sincerely appreciate it from the bottom of my fucking heart. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Until then, be great. God bless.